From the air age, through the missile age, and into the age of space. Our space age heritage of knowledge is older than a decade, older than a century, older than a millennium. Our scientific knowledge has evolved through the ages concurrently with the minds of men. Our capacity to learn has expanded in the process. The challenging idea of exploring beyond our planetary boundaries is as old as history, probably as old as humanity itself.
Welcome to the Cinematic Void podcast. Cinematic Void is a cult film series that hosts screenings in the Los Angeles area as well as virtually. I'm your host, Jim Branscombe, and joining me as always is...
Hey, what's going on? It's Nick Vance at Paranoid Futures on all the places. You can find Cinematic Void on the World Wide Web at cinematicvoid.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all the major podcast platforms. If you want to support The Void, you can consider joining our Patreon. Not only do you get cool perks, but you make this podcast as well as the Cinemadness movie possible.
Joining us today on the Cinematic Void podcast is one of our favorite musicians ever. Well, obviously, because she was the architect behind the, more or less, the Cinematic Void theme song, Astros. Her current project is Death Hags, so please welcome to The Void, Lola G. How you doing, Lola?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, this has been a long time coming, because we've talked about over the years trying to do a Death Hags live show at The Void, and we sort of did it during the pandemic with a music video, but... the thing is, I'm indebted to you because of that song that I can't ever not play at Cinematic Void. So, but I figured we were talking about doing the podcast, and you're like, I don't want to do a traditional interview thing. So I was like, instead of that, we're going to do something a little bit more fun, which is I let you pick the theme and then the movies we're going to talk about. So this is going to be the Lola show today. But it's a good thing because, like, honestly... I don't think we would have, well, maybe Nick would, because Nick's gotten deep into Criterion titles as of late, so he might have picked some of these, and we did talk about one of these, when we'll get to that when we get to that one, but your pitch was old and new weird sci-fi. Why that subject?
Well, I was trying to find films where the environment is the main character, like, where, like, there's obviously main characters, but the environment plays a huge character role. And I guess one of them doesn't really fit in there, but the other three I think are, of the same kind. But yeah, they're all movies that I really liked. And two of them, so one of them is one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, do we have to guess which one it is?
Which one are we starting with?
We're starting with the 1979 Russian
film. All-time favorite of mine, Stalker.
Andrei Tarkovsky, who's now kind of gotten a new wind as of late, because when I saw Stalker on your list, it just kind of reminded me that the last few years that we showed Eddie Tarkovsky, we've been nearly selling out when we've been doing them.
Oh, really? That's cool.
We did a series of a bunch of restorations. We did Stalker at the Egyptian, which seats about 600. We pretty much sold it out, which, a few years ago, I don't think that would happen. We might have done 150, 200, but like Tarkovsky's now, he's the hot filmmaker in the rep art house scene, I guess.
Is it, did Criterion do like a thing, right?
I think they did a restoration, because, like, Stalker was the big one. Solaris, which I used to think was probably considered a little bit bigger,
right,
at least rep house-wise, because everyone, kind of went to it because of its 2001-ishness, even though it's not really like that movie. But it ended up being Stalker was the big hit. All the films, because we did Solaris, and I forget some of the other ones we did, but, like, they all did really, really well. Which is really interesting because, one, this movie has no dialogue for the first 10 minutes. Two, it's 163 minutes. And it only includes 142 shots.
But they're all beautiful, though.
They are.
All paintings, so I guess that's part of why it's in my favorite movies, because every shot is a painting and a poem.
I'm going to assume, because you were talking about, you picked sci-fi movies that had to deal with environments. And the main thing with Stalker is that, there's the zone, which is kind of forbidden area that people want to get in there because there's, all these rooms within that are supposed to unlock innermost desires and things like that. I find it interesting because, I didn't realize the theme until I started looking and doing notes on this. It's like, oh, it is environmental. Why didn't I not think about it when I was just... It took me to phase 4 to figure out. It's like, oh yeah, this is the theme.
The book is more slanted towards alien, not alien invasion, but there's alien stuff that touched down.
Yeah.
So it's very, very different than the book. I think it's interesting in that way. The way that the characters that are going to the zone, that aren't the Stalker or even the Stalker, really, they don't have names. They're the writer, the professor, much like another film we're going to talk about in a little bit.
I was trying to do
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really good set. It's a good set of 4 films and 2 bonus ones that we'll get to too. It's a really epic film in its scope and all that. All Tarkovsky's films are like that. They're all they're epitome of slow burns. Although I don't even know if they really burn. They're just it's just art unfolding. It doesn't really catch a fire, but by the time you're done, you're just what did I just experience? Which is probably one of the purest forms of cinema.
Yeah, exactly. It's you go to a different world. You go in the zone for it's 2 hours and 40 minutes or something. Yeah, it's crazy.
Now, the most interesting thing about it is that the screenplay was written by the people that wrote the book it was based on, which was, I'm going to mispronounce their names badly. Sorry, Russian friends. Boris and Arkady Strugatsky. But the book was called Roadside Panic, and I know they worked on the screenplay too, and my understanding is when they were shooting the movie, they ran an issue because they were using a film stock that wasn't really common in Russia at the time. And when they took it to the lab basically fucked up the negative and basically lost part of the film, so they had to go back and reshoot it.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize they were part of the screenplay, they co-wrote the screenplay. I've never read the novel.
A lot of this film was filmed in I don't know where specifically, but it was filmed in areas maybe near Chernobyl, something like that. So a lot of the crew got very sick, and even Tarkovsky himself died from filming Stalker. So
he did. I never realized
did,
that.
Yeah. Was it a radiation-related poison kind of?
Yes.
That's crazy.
There's 2. This is the second movie. I never actually knew this. But the other movie I think about that ended up having most of the cast and crew died because of radiation, because of its locale, was John Wayne movie, The Conqueror, where he plays Genghis Khan, because they shot it near where they were doing all the nuclear testing, and everyone involved with that movie died of some kind of weird radiation-related cancer or poisoning type stuff.
Oh, shit, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Or just someone wanted John Wayne to die for playing a Mongolian badly.
Totally. Well, so yeah, I didn't realize that was that Tarkovsky got sick there. I didn't make that connection.
Yeah.
It's meta, man.
The movie's bleak enough that it could have killed a person anyway, but
I love that green. Whenever it's funny because whenever I want to describe my favorite green, I'm Stalker green.
I mean, it has those 2 color palettes, which is the color footage, which is the zone, and then I think it's sepia for everything that's outside the zone.
Yeah, it's super sepia. Yeah.
What else about this movie is kind of drawing to you? Obviously, we're talking about it environmentally, but you said this is one of your all-time favorite films. Not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to.
Well, it's partly what we were saying, the visual aspect and the fact that every shot is like a painting. But also this, I'm always into the unknown, going into the unknown. And that's definitely a movie about that. They don't know where they're going, but they really want to go. And they don't know, there's always what's above the horizon, kind of the hidden, the unknown is something that is very attractive to me. So.
The other thing I think about when I think of Tarkovsky is his way he handles science fiction, because only because it's just stuck in my head as like Solaris, because that was the first one I saw. It's like the way he handles sci-fi is like it almost feels like it's real in a way that like a lot of science fiction isn't, and this even feels real, mostly because it's not like, you know, it's not Star Wars, if what I'm getting at, but it feels grounded. It feels like the future. It feels like a very real future that it could be. It's also very dystopian, which is another theme we'll be covering a lot in these movies.
Yeah, totally. It's like future realistic for sure.
I'm gonna spoil something here, about the ending or whatever, which we tend to do. So listeners, if you haven't seen Stalker, just pause this. Go spend 3 hours. Go watch this. But so for those who have seen it or just don't mind the spoiler, he keeps mentioning that his daughter's been affected by the zone, and so then they reveal that kind of at the end. It's like I don't know what else to call it, but kind of like a X-Men sort of thing. Like I didn't even see that. Like I didn't see that coming. Like fuck, I lost my mind. So
I love the dog too. Like there's like a black German Shepherd, or like I don't know which kind of dog it is, but he's like a main like ghost kind of presence in the movie. It's very very unsettling.
You just watched this recently, haven't you, Nick?
At least 3 times since December. Yeah. Yeah. I am infatuated with this. I have, like I say, I have the book. I have the book about it.
Look, it made a huge impression on me first time I saw it. And every once in a while, I'm like, I've got to watch Stalker again. So,
Cool.
It's one of those things.
So thanks for bringing this one to the table because Jim is kind of adverse to sci-fi, it seems. So.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I like sci-fi, but like, I'm very picky when I talk about it.
I think this is like kind of what they call elevated sci-fi.
That's fair. I don't mean to say that Jim doesn't like sci-fi. I'll say that he's selective.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I look at Tarkovsky, yes, science fiction, but it's definitely more modern art in a way, because it is like, it's painting in real time. It's like, and I don't mean that as a negative, like, people, I'm not saying like it's watching paint dry on a wall. I mean, it's like watching a master painter paint in real time. And by the time you're done, it's like, holy shit, that's one of the best fucking things I've ever seen. And, I remember when I first saw Stalker, I got it when I think Kino put it out. And it was on DVD, and it was like 2 discs, which is, back in the day, you had to like, one disc ended, had to take it out, put in the next one. I mean, those early DVDs, like I think Lawrence of Arabia was like that. I think Seven Samurai was like that, like 2 discers, because of just how long they were.
I mean, it's sci-fi, but it's just art, basically. It's not, because these days when you say sci-fi, like you picture, Marvel movies or something, and I hate Marvel movies. So
another interesting thing about it is that, and again, spoilers, but when they got to the room, when they got to the place, they didn't go in.
They stay at the border.
Yeah.
They never cross the border, basically.
It's like finding the fountain of youth and be like, I'm good. Don't need it.
I don't know if I want to go in. Maybe not. Yeah.
The fact is, it's like, it's, wish fulfillment. And I feel like Tarkovsky, like, as much as his movies are works of art and beautiful, I don't want to say cynicism, because I think that might be a little too, well, they are pretty, like, they're pretty bleak. So if people had actually gone into those rooms and gotten what they wanted, that would be like a happy ending. And I don't think Tarkovsky had that in him in any of his films, any way possible.
I think the point is they don't know what they want, because like we think we know what we want, but we really don't most of the time. So like when you're like, oh, if you walk through that door, you're going to actually get what you want. It's like, I don't know what I want, like, so.
I mean, beyond sci-fi, it's just like a breakdown of human nature, just flat out. Because it's, you're right. It's just no one really knows what they want. They think they know what they want, but then when they're offered the exact thing, it's like, here's all your answers. Like, whoa, don't need that.
Yeah, it's too much. Totally.
Well, this is how you sum up a 163-minute movie in 10 minutes or less.
You have to experience. It's like you can't. It's not really like a plot-based movie. Like you have to experience. It's an experience.
Yeah.
Like You can't really like explain it.
I mean, I know you watched it at home for the first time, Nick, but it's a different ball game when you see it in a theater.
Oh, I do have one last quick thing before we move on. So, right when the Egyptian was playing Stalker that last time, I had neighbors like right next door that I was very friendly with that were from Russia. Like they literally just got here from Russia. They could speak a little English, but like we had a little bit of a hard time communicating. So Stalker came up, and I'm like, oh shit, a Russian movie. That's cool. Like I'll tell these guys about it. So I showed them the trailer. And, it's in Russian with subtitles and whatever. And we're watching the trailer. And when it was over, they went, that looks boring. We like American movies. So there you go.
That actually came up before. My wife worked with a woman who was Russian. And, like, for some reason, she was asking about, like, Russian films I know. And, like, Tarkovsky was the first one that came up. And she's like, oh, that shit's boring. So... It might just be like it's sort of like a lot of the Italian genre stuff, which was not very beloved and still not very beloved in Italy, but worldwide it's they're considered like art or really good films. And I mean I don't know enough about Russia's relationship with Tarkovsky, but because there's a lot of things, because Tarkovsky is kind of like anti-Russian in style, because if we go back in film history, like montage or Soviet montage, the Eisenstein stuff, like that was the big, that was kind of the thing that Russia became known for, was like all these, montage editing. And like Tarkovsky was like, nope, don't like fast editing. Here's this nice 4-minute shot.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
But it's undeniable. And, I might not be the biggest sci-fi guy, but like this movie is a work of art. And if you haven't seen it yet and you're still listening to it and you haven't paused and took about a 3-hour break and came back, shame on you. Go watch Stalker now.
Totally.
But we're going to take a quick commercial break. But when we return, we're going to be talking about more old and new sci-fi with Lola G from Death Hags on the Cinematic Void podcast.
For what had happened when the uranium atom split was a kind of double miracle of science. Half of the miracle concerned that binding force we spoke of before, that kind of cosmic glue which holds the atom's nucleus together. We still don't know all about that binding force yet, but we do know it is equivalent to mass. Therefore, we may speak of it as having a kind of weight of its own. Now, the two atoms into which a uranium atom splits also have binding force. But for some reason, it takes less of that glue to hold them together, and in the process of fission, a tiny fraction is left over. What happens to it? It explodes as energy, proving Einstein's theory that mass and energy are really the same.
Welcome back. We are talking about new and old science fiction with Lola G of Death Hags on the Cinematic Void podcast. Up next is the second film she suggested that we talk about, which is actually a pretty damn good movie. Came out in 2018. It's directed by Alex Garland, and it's Annihilation. It stars Natalie Portman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Benedict Wong, Oscar Isaac, and Tessa Thompson. And it's also based on a novel by Jeff Van Meer. And before I throw it to Lola, Nick, have you read this book?
This is one of my favorite books of all time. Absolutely.
Okay, before we get to that, I'm going to throw Lola. So why Annihilation?
Well, I read the book after seeing the movie, but when I did see the movie, it was one of my favorite movies that year. It was, again, the unknown, the reference to Stalker, obviously. I mean, it's like everywhere in the movie, so like, and the I forget which character. I think it's the Tessa Thompson character. She decides to merge with the plants and the like that sort of like spoke to me in so many like metaphysical ways that I was like, this is like my favorite thing ever. And then I read the books, and the book is better than the movie, but the movie's great. So
I was gonna ask Nick, since like I think you've read most of the books involved with these movies, right?
I read the whole series. Did you read the whole series, Lola?
I read the first and the second. I haven't read the third one, but I want to read it.
The second one's a little boring. In my opinion, I think that's kind of it's kind of a I think that's a kind of a common opinion that the second one's boring, but then the third one kind of jumps back into it and it'll suck you in a little more.
Okay.
So definitely check that out. I didn't like this movie when I first saw it because I love the book so much, and that's kind of insane. And there's a lot of differences between the two. I went back and watched the movie a little bit later and came to love it. Like I really think it's great now. But there's a lot of differences in the two. Like I guess the movie is a culmination of all three books in a way, but at the same time, it felt like, did he read those books? So is it like I think at one point I'm like, this guy didn't read the book.
I think that, I mean, I haven't read any interviews, but I think that it's not really impossible to really adapt that book well. I mean, like I was like, and when I read the novel after seeing the movie, I was like, I felt like I had gotten ripped off because I was like, oh man, that movie sucked. Like the book is so much better. you know?
Like imagine the tower or the tunnel, that is the majority of the book. Like had that been in the film, like fuck.
Yeah, but, and the organism. I mean, the way he describes I mean, it's just like, But I think he did his best with. I mean, you can't. I don't think you. You know.
Like you say, it's an unfilmable book.
There's a lot of people who have made careers out of making movies out of unfilmable books. David Cronenberg did 2. One was Naked Lunch, which if you did a literal adaptation, you would be shot off into space. And then they also did Crash, which was, he got the tone right, but it's like there's no way you could do a literal adaptation of Crash ever. What's interesting is Alex Garland started out as a novelist on his own, I think, because he wrote The Beach, which Danny Boyle ended up adapting.
I believe he wrote 28 Days Later as well.
Yeah, he actually he wrote the screenplay. He wrote the screenplay to 28 Days Later and Sunshine.
So was he tied in with Danny Boyle? Like, did they just specifically work together?
Yeah, I think because Danny Boyle did The Beach first, and then I guess like him and Alex had hit it off, so they just started working together on like original stuff. Because 28 Days Later is, it's a fantastic contagion movie or a zombie movie or whatever you want to call it, and Sunshine is another really great sci-fi movie. It's somewhere in between, I'd say, like Event Horizon and maybe like Solaris in 2001.
I don't remember if I've seen it. I think I have, but
I haven't seen it in a while, but like it was just kind of interesting. He started as a novelist and then picked another person's novel to adapt for this, which was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of an interesting thing. And that's why I kind of wanted like the opinion on the book, because I haven't read the book.
I've given my copy of this book away to multiple people and then had to rebuy it, and then I give my copy away again after I read it. Really, I'm a fan.
Believe you. I'm a fan too. I want to read some of his other books.
So I guess we should get into those comparisons to Stalker, because they both involve an environment that you can go to, and obviously they bring a crew. I forget what everyone is. It's like a doctor, like a biologist, and but unlike Stalker, is like they start becoming part of the environment, which is my memory's a little bad at this, but it's like the Shimmer thing where they kind of like involve and become part of it, because you were talking about the metaphysical aspect, which is kind of a unique way to look at sci-fi, because like not a lot of sci-fi taps into the metaphysical or occult aspects of things, which I think kind of do go hand in hand with like sci-fi, but not a lot of people utilize it. This movie actually did a good job of that.
Yeah, totally. I also like the idea that there are other worlds that are among us, but we, like, a lot of people don't see them. And if you're attuned to, I mean, I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but like sometimes you have that, and like there's a vacant lot and you feel like if you get in, like, it's a different world, you're gonna, like, there's a portal, like there are portals somewhere. It's
kind of the Lynch idea of like, you go, like I always think of Twin Peaks and like, entering a portal into a different world. Like I know we're not talking about him, but I think David Lynch is one of the few filmmakers that gets metaphysical stuff really well, that a lot of people don't realize because they're not in that world. Like my wife's very deep in metaphysical stuff, and like she's probably the one person that understands David Lynch's films better than anyone I ever met. And she like, because most of the time when you think of Lynch, everyone's like, I don't understand what the fuck is going on. This is just weird shit. And my wife's like, no, it's like this, it's like that, this is this, and it's just like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
But I think of this one because it's just, it's there's grief involved. There's some doppelganger stuff in it too, and I actually did write down the expedition team part of it, which is a biologist, an anthropologist, a psychologist, a surveyor, and a linguist, which is who you would want to go to, like a unknown land, to kind of chart and document and kind of break it down.
Yeah.
And then this movie does have probably one of the cooler sci-fi monsters in recent years, which are mutant bears.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the mutant bears. There's a thing in the book that I don't think is in the movie, where she sees a dolphin.
Oh, right.
Out of the ocean, of the whatever body of water, and the dolphin's eye is human, and that's when she realizes that every cells, it's like a multi-species cells merging environment in Area X, and it's like I really wanted to see that in the movie after I read the book, but yeah, I don't think it's in there.
And there aren't many of the creatures, like the mutant bears, like they aren't in the book. Like I think the dolphin thing is one of the very few examples of a mutated kind of creature.
That was the other thing I was curious about, because again, I haven't read the book, but I was just wondering.
I'll probably give it to you at some point.
It's it's your turn to read it. It becomes like The Ring, where everyone has to read it and then have to pass it on to someone else, or you get mauled by a mutant bear.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
I would just like to mention that they weren't in love in the book, and that being a major plot point in the movie fucking pissed me off.
You know what? You're right. I totally forgot about that. Yes, I forgot about that part. I mean, it's been a while since I watched it. But yes, you're absolutely right. That ruins it.
That was definitely a studio note.
Yeah.
I know. They're like, no. They have to be no.
You can't have this in a movie. You gotta have a love interest. You gotta have that angle.
They just have to ruin everything. So yeah.
Despite that, I think Annihilation. If you haven't seen Annihilation, just please watch it. Watch it after you watch Stalker. Actually, just make a marathon of all four of these movies. This is the kind of stuff I want to see people doing, as in the science fiction realm, not necessarily what is now filling the science fiction realm.
Do you think that maybe that's why it didn't do well, because it's not conventionally, I guess, sci-fi, or I don't know.
I also think they might have botched the marketing on it, because you would think a movie starring Natalie Portman, and I think Natalie Portman was still doing pretty. I'm not saying I really don't know how people judge actors and hot projects or whatever, but it's got a stacked cast. So there's really no reason, but I should probably go back and watch the trailers and just see how they sold it, because I feel like marketing is what really probably killed it, and it was probably too unique of a film to figure out how to get it to it, because it's you can't really push it towards the Star Wars or the Marvel crowd, because it's not it. I mean, you could, but they would all be really, really fucking mad about it, but it's not quite that. It's not quite on the weird end of sci-fi, or it's obviously it's got some Tarkovsky in it, but they can't really market it to that crowd.
It's not like art house, but it's too artful to be mainstream, I guess.
Because it wasn't a big budget movie, and when I say wasn't big budget, it was I think its budget was $50 million, which seems like a lot, but for a sci-fi movie in 2018, 50 is kind of that's considered a middle of the road budget. That's usually for kind of high-end independent films, or the dramas and stuff like that. So there was a lot of money on it, but it looks good. I think the movie's really well done. I just think it couldn't find an audience, but I know when it came out in theaters and basically died, I know a lot of people went and saw it and were championing it, and then when it hit Netflix, I know a lot of people went and watched it that way. So I have a feeling maybe in maybe the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be a movie that is going to reemerge, kind of thing. Because I think it might have been a little ahead of the scale, because at some point, and I know people aren't agree with me, the Marvel, Star Wars, Disney monopoly on franchise is going to burn out. That it always happens. It's a film cycle. It's you got to think of all the years there have been musicals. Not knocking musicals, but for a good 20 years, there was nothing but fucking musicals that Hollywood was making. And they just got worse and worse and worse. And then what came out of it was the American New Wave, or the Hollywood New Wave, where you got people like Francis Ford Coppola and Martin Scorsese and like, you know, Billy Friedkin and like all those like kind of people that are doing more art-driven movies that were not costing a lot of money. But, you know, I think people are going to get burned out of like comic books.
I mean, I kind of hope so, because I don't like them, but you know, I mean, what do I know?
I mean, the last Marvel movie I saw was Iron Man, the first one. That is the only one I've seen. That's going to be the only one I'm probably going to see. It's just I don't have the investment. It's like I don't want to watch movies like a TV show that you wait 3 months to see the next chapter and it's all connected. It's just like, you know, I know people like that and it's a good business model because it just makes people go back. But it's just like, it's not, I want to see individual movies. You know, I want to see someone give it their all, tell a full, complete story in like 90 minutes to like, you know, some people need 3 hours, 3 hours, whatever it takes to tell your story. I don't need a never-ending continuous loop, because those Marvel and Star Wars movies, like, where does it fucking end? Yeah, Darth Vader's dead, but then a new bad guy's going to show up, and it's just basically grand-scale episodic TV. But we're going to take another quick commercial break, but when we return, we're going to be talking about more old and new sci-fi with Lola G of Death Hags on the Cinematic Void podcast.
Unbearable suspense that keeps you on the edge of an abyss of terror.
Take a cult film odyssey into Cinemadness with Cinematic Void. Based in Los Angeles, Cinematic Void is a film series that specializes in horror and exploitation films. Currently, we are hosting Cinematic Void Up All Night in the Cinemadness movie, a monthly virtual screening series, as well as the Cinematic Void podcast, where we dive deeper into the world of cult cinema. You can find Cinematic Void on the World Wide Web at cinematicvoid.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you like what we do, you can support Cinematic Void by joining our Patreon. Until next time, see you in the Void.
Welcome back. We've been talking about old and new science fiction with Lola G of Death Hags on the Cinematic Void podcast. Up next, we're actually going to revisit a title that Nick and I talked about, I guess, some point last year. I don't know what the years are during this pandemic. They all kind of blur together, but we talked about this movie on our drugs episode, and more in the reference to the psychedelic images and things you could watch while being high and having an experience. This time, though, we're going to be looking at it at a different angle. Or maybe the same angle. I don't know. It depends. So, this movie is from 1974. It's directed by the great Saul Bass, who did title sequences for a lot of Hitchcock stuff and Kubrick stuff, and one of the great, like, designer eyes that ever graced any medium, really. And the movie we're talking about is Phase 4, stars Nigel Davenport, Michael Murphy, and Lynn Frederick. And if you haven't seen the movie, it involves these desert ants that suddenly form a collective intelligence and begin to wage war on its inhabitants. You know, it's a killer ant movie, but not in the Irwin Allen sense of, like, disaster movie or giant animal attack, or I should say Irwin Allen or Bird-Eye Gordon, who loved, like, animals and giant stuff. But this is a very unique film. Probably a little too unique because poor Saul Bass didn't get to make another feature-length movie after this. This was his one and done. So he joins the ranks of Charles Laughton, who did Night of the Hunter, another masterpiece that was misunderstood at the time. So he's in good company there. He's in one of the upper echelon of one and dones. But so Lola, why Phase 4?
You know, it was on my list of things to watch for a long time, and I finally watched it last year, and I was just like, this is my new favorite insect movie. I love this. I mean, it's like the visuals are amazing, and the ants, the macro, they filmed, like, those are real ants.
The macro photography, yeah.
Yeah, the macro photography of the ants was just, like, it just blew me away. Like, I was entranced by the ants. And there's, like, an alternate ending. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the alternate, the Kubrick ending?
The ending where the ants win and Phase 4 literally happens and they take over. It's all a montage, and it's just like it's insane. And I can see why, not that I agree with the studio cutting it, but I can see why they're like, nope.
It would have been so much better with that ending, but
Yeah.
It's still great. It's still a great movie, and it's the same idea of like the environment takes over. And
the environment changes because the ants become, they get into their own group thing. And they're like, you know what? Fuck the humans, which is a fair assessment, I would say, even in the bleak, like, dystopian landscape. Now, I know Nick didn't read the book to this one because this one's a little different. There is a novelization based on the film script that actually came out before the movie did. It was adapted by Barry N. Malzberg, who did a bunch of other sci-fi stuff that I can't think of off the top of my head, but like the book came out in 73, the movie came out in 74, and the book actually has the original ending in it.
Oh, with the Kubrick type montage. Okay.
I don't know how it's presented in the novel, but it does
right.
include I'm not sure the last page is it, and Kubrick style montage to close things out as the ants take over. I mean, that's a pretty good sentence, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
It's interesting you brought up because I do love this movie because it's weird, but in a really, really great way. Because like there's a lot of sci-fi movies, obviously, but like it's very unique in what it does. And it's like, yeah, it's also a killer bug movie, but it's presented in a way where normally the killer bugs are giant or like, radiation, but this is animals or insects working together in intelligence, which is, I think, pretty unique because, like, most of the time when you get into, like, killer bugs and killer animals, it's just, the animals are treated as, like, just dumb or crazed or something happened in the sun or any multitude of excuses of why the animals are doing what they're doing. This is just animal evolution, which I think is really interesting because I always kind of wonder what's going to evolve that's going to take out the humans. And honestly, ants could probably do it.
Could be. Ants are very smart. But I like that. I like how the guy's trying to communicate with he's like, this is an intelligence form, a form of intelligence I want to communicate with. And he's trying to do like like radio waves or whatever with his signals. I like that.
It's like they're trying to like communicate with like alien life, except it's life that's on this planet. And it's, it's much deeper than just like ants on the rampage movie because it deals with like primordial things of like evolution and like,
language
and like, just communicating because like I think in everyday life, and as I get very philosophical here, is like people don't really think of like communicating with like anything outside of like other humans, but like, people have pets, you communicate with your pets. You see a bird that's like singing and like I at least have like notions like why is it singing? Like, is it singing to me? Is it singing to something else? Like, or when a squirrel runs up to you or any multitude of things. It's just, I feel like I'm on drugs and I'm going down this deep rabbit hole of like the deeper.
You sound very normal to me because I talk to trees. So, I mean, it's like.
The biggest thing is communication just on any level, which, a lot of sci-fi, like if you could communicate it with the alien or the xenomorph from Alien, would it really been mad? Would it really killed everyone?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's like, because like I feel like human nature is to destroy. And in this movie, it's like, no, we need to understand because we need to have a greater, it's like, it's really doing the scientific, duty, which is like trying to learn and understand. Whereas I think a lot of sci-fi movies just like blow them the fuck up kind of mentality.
It's like there's a good guy, bad guy. Like one guy wants to destroy them, the other guy wants to understand them. So it's good cop, bad cop, I guess. It's like that movie with Amy Adams. What was it called? Arrival.
Oh yeah, with
where like she's trying to talk to them, and there's like this annoying dude who wants to kill them instead. And it's the same dynamic.
The biggest thing of this movie is just consciousness, and just it's very deep, and like obviously this is environmental too, but like I think, well, I'd say Stalker is very, very heady and cerebral, and this is in the same, I don't want to say it's like the same thing because like, Stalker is a dystopian future where you're trying to find like your happiness or like the thing you always long for and then deciding like, oh, I don't want it. And Phase 4 is like trying to understand things you don't understand just so you can understand life. So it's quite deep. I feel like I'm getting really deep in a movie about ants.
It's worth watching just for that footage of the ants. I mean, like, seriously.
I didn't realize that was actual footage of ants. It's insane. It's insane.
I mean, yeah.
But then when I was thinking about it and looking at it, I'm like, if that's not actually ants, I also don't know how the fuck they did that.
Yeah,
Whatever it is. Like, if that's puppets or something, it's insane. But
I mean, that ant footage is like, it's crazy because like, I
They
mean, I
didn't
know
have VFX at the time, so.
I'm kind of glad they didn't have the effects. Could you imagine watching Phase 4 with a bunch of CGI ants?
No.
What was Jerry Seinfeld in a movie about ants? Like an animated movie? Was it called Ants with a Z or something like that?
I think he's the bee guy.
Oh, it's the bee. But there was a movie called Ants, right?
Yes.
But it wasn't Jerry Seinfeld. So
No. I don't remember who that was, though.
I was just thinking because like if you animated the ants, it would just it wouldn't feel the same. And which I think which also gives Phase 4 like realism because like it's obviously you're manipulating footage and it's the way it's edited and the way it's presented is what makes it how it work. But like if you put in a CGI or like a ant puppet, I think it would take you out of it. I think it's like those little details and like Saul Bass like was always detail heavy. Everything from like the trailers, his title sequences, his poster art, like it's a shame that he didn't get more opportunities to make films because like he definitely had an eye that a lot of filmmakers or artists don't have.
Yeah. I wonder why he didn't make another film after this. I mean, other than the fact that he wasn't commercially successful, but
it's weird because you look at the people that have had box office failures in recent years who get to come back and make movie after movie. And then you think of like Elaine May who like made essentially 2 movies and then like got punished for Ishtar, which was not even like really her fault.
oh my God, I just saw that recently. It's actually good.
No,
I actually liked it.
Ishtar isn't bad, but I think it was one of those things that kind of got a bad rap at the time because like Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman were just being assholes on the movie and she paid the price, which sucks. And I feel like because this was a weird sci-fi movie and everyone's like, it's Saul, just stick to doing titles and posters and stuff like that. And I feel like this is going back to Alex Garland, what we were talking about in the previous segment, is just when it comes to art, if you make pure art or you try to do something different, you get punished more than like if you make a flop that was like what the studio wanted.
Yeah, that's true, actually. And I guess it's the same in music a little bit. It's like...
I mean, it's just like there's bands that put out shit album after shit album after shit album, and the studio's like, or the record label's like, here's some more money. I guess someone's listening to that stuff. I don't know, but I feel like it's a bad mentality. If it's like, I don't think Phase 4 was like a big box office. Like, I don't think they lost a lot of money on it, but I feel like because of what it was and just how weird, because like it definitely came out in that phase in the 70s where it was like the weird, like, I mean, Stalker kind of falls into this too, even though it's a little later, but like there's stuff like Silent Running and things like that, very existential, like deep and ponderous sci-fi, which I do like quite a bit. And like this is part of it. It's just like I think combination of like I wouldn't say this movie's bleak, but it's definitely like it's not a happy film.
Well, yeah, I guess it's not a happy film. I guess not. It's like, I mean, I don't know if it's bleak, but yeah, it's not happy. There's no happy ending. Well, actually, there is kind of a happy ending.
There's a happy ending, but the original ending's happy for ants, which good for ants. And I will say this now to our future ant overlords. Hey, Phase 4 is a masterpiece. Don't eat me. There's plenty of other humans you can eat first, but I don't know. But any closing thoughts on Phase 4 before we move on?
Watch it just for the ants.
I feel like the ants should have won Best Actor. They should have won both categories because like those ant performances, like trying to think who won for 1974. I can't think of it. You're not better than the ants in Phase 4. I'm sorry. Watch it was like, I should probably look this up.
Probably like Robert Redford or something.
Best actor, Art Carney for Harry and Tonto.
I'll take the ants.
I like Art Carney.
I have no idea who that is.
Art Carney was a comedian. There's a movie he did with Lily Tomlin that I'm forgetting the title of that's really, really good. But he was also in that abomination of the Star Wars Christmas special, so yeah.
Oh.
I'm gonna take Art Carney's Oscar away from him and give it to the ants from Phase 4. Robert De Niro won Best Supporting Actor for The Godfather Part 2.
Oh, weird.
I mean,
not a good year.
It's like, De Niro's fine, but, you grew a mustache. Those ants had to work their ass off, so your Academy Award's going to the ants. Ingrid Bergman won Best Supporting Actress in Murder on the Orient Express. I mean, I love Sidney Lumet, but, it's not a great Agatha Christie adaptation.
She's good, though, so she deserved it.
Yeah, I think this might have been, I don't know if she won another Oscar outside of this, because I almost feel like this might have been Pity Oscar, which sucks even more because she was in so many great movies. She's actually really good in the movie, but it's not a great Sidney Lumet movie, but I'm going to let her keep her Oscar because it's Ingrid Bergman. And, and the other one, I can't give to the ants because it is Ellen Burstyn in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which is a phenomenal performance. It's one of my favorite Scorsese films. Yeah, I can't take away Ellen Burstyn's Oscar because I love Alice. So they can have Art Carney's and Robert De Niro's, but the other two they can't have. But yeah, so we are rectifying history. Academy, do your diligence. Give a post. I guess those ants probably did. I don't actually. What's the life expectancy of an ant?
Definitely not. However many years that is.
Whatever. Just collectively give it to the ants because when they take over, they're going to take those Oscars anyway. I'm sorry that I derailed this just to give the ants Oscars, but you know what? It's important, damn it.
I think it is. I think they will appreciate it.
That's the other thing. It's why don't they give Academy Awards for Best Animal Actors?
I think that's a valid category that should definitely be considered.
I think the two they need to add is stunt people and animals.
Yeah, stunt people don't have their award.
No, and stunt people do a lot of the heavy lifting. It's outside of Tom Cruise, who has to do all of his own running and jumping and all that stuff. I don't think Brad Pitt's doing his own stunts at this point.
God no.
So yeah, it's rectify it. Give Academy Award to the ants. Have a category for animals. Category for stunt people. There you go. And in 2021, the Oscars will be better. All right, we're going to take another quick commercial break, but when we return, we're going to talk about some wild card picks that Lola sent us on the Cinematic Void podcast.
In the next few moments, we will try to give you an impression of a new kind of film experience. If your curiosity is aroused, you are ready for Phase 4.
They're sending back my message.
What does it mean? This is no message.
If there's an intelligence there, I want it to know there's an intelligence here. I believe that they'll move rather quickly into desert areas, taking over the countryside first, then laying siege to towns and cities. We have only one chance.
Please, go away.
I can't believe it. You know our plans, our strengths, our weaknesses. Why don't they kill us? What do they want?
How do you fight a force that knows what your next move will be before you think of it?
Welcome back. We've been talking about old and new science fiction here on the Cinematic Void podcast with our friend Lola G from Death Hags. And these next two films that, honestly, neither Nick and I have seen, but after reading about them, I kind of want to see both of them. So, Lola, why don't you talk about these two wildcard picks you suggested?
Well, the first one is Kuzo. I don't know if it's written by him, but it's definitely directed by Flying Lotus. And I think he co-wrote it with someone. I don't remember who. But it's sort of like, well, first of all, I love Flying Lotus. And I read that he did a movie and that it created like a mass walkout somewhere. I think it was Sundance. So just for that, I had to see it. Because, you know, it was like people said it was unwatchable and really offensive and this and that. And it's really basically like Jodorowsky level of, you know, I guess it's a grotesque, surrealist movie, but I don't understand why they walked out. I'm not really sure.
I think it might have to do with the Sundance crowd. I've never been to Sundance. I know critics of like people I know who like review films have gone, but like I feel like a lot of people go to Sundance and don't really care about the movies. They just want to say they saw something. So when something is a little bit subversive, I think it fucks with them in a way they're not prepared for. It takes a lot. Like, it's not like Cannes, where like if you show a movie that people hate, they fucking boo and like hiss and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't really happen at Sundance. Usually if a movie like comes out that no one cares about, it just dies and disappears. But like this, like, apparently made enough noise. And just looking at the cast, it's like this weirdest collection. It's like, dare I say, like taking like the Adult Swim approach to like bringing people, because it's Hannibal Buress, it's George Clinton from Parliament Funkadelic, Tim Heidecker from Tim and Eric, obviously, and the person who wrote one of the greatest songs ever that Nick and I can attest to, Zach Fox.
Ooh, I got depression.
It's basically like Buñuel, but like through, like you said, through the Adult Swim filter. But it's visually, it's like a smorgasbord of just like creativity. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever.
I looked at the poster and it just looks insane.
Yeah, it's basically insane, but it's just, I don't know. I liked it.
Now, you said Jodorowsky. Is it closer to like maybe the Holy Mountain in a way?
Yeah, in the sense that he does, you can tell that he does try to like shock people a little bit, like juice, you know. I mean, whatever. I mean, nothing shocks me, but I could see, I guess, why people would be shocked. But yeah, it definitely has a Jodorowsky Holy Mountain.
I think it was playing on Shudder for a little bit. I don't know if it's still on there, but like I remember when it came out, I was like, I definitely need to check it out, and then I didn't. So when I saw this pop up on your list, I was like, shit, I need to rewatch it, and then I ran out of time to rewatch it before this podcast. But now it's on my list of things I need to watch before the next time I do a podcast, so I can talk about and rewatch and listen. Because like I'm kind of excited to see it. Like, the fact that someone wrote it was the grossest movie ever made, which I don't really believe, because...
Well, the premise is there's an earthquake in LA and everybody comes down with like a really disgusting skin disease. And so like people have just weird things on their face and their skin is sort of peeling off. And I guess that's the disgusting part of it.
It sounds like the person that said this had not really ever seen a horror movie.
Right, or a Buñuel movie or a Jodorowsky movie. I mean, clearly, but yeah, it's very interesting, and I think that definitely, and the music is great. There's some Aphex Twin in there. There's some like he did some of the music, but he also collaborated with people. I mean, it's just this big thing.
This is when you use your clout in the right way, because obviously music is what opened the door for this to happen. And someone's like, I love what you do. Have you ever thought about making a film? And I feel like he said yes. And he just had this idea, and like basically no one said no because he was Flying Lotus. So he just like, all right, if there's no boundaries, I'm just going to push this to the most insane thing I could possibly fucking do, which is what it sounds like. And I can't wait to actually watch this one.
I recommend it.
Now, for your second kind of wildcard pick is a movie, I think it's on Hulu now, if I'm not mistaken. It's She Dies Tomorrow, and I'm just going to read the plot of this because it sounds like something I would love just based on what it is. So, Amy is ravaged by the notion that she's going to die tomorrow, which sends her down a dizzying emotional spiral. When her skeptical friend Jane discovers Amy's feelings of imminent death to be contagious, they both begin a bizarre journey through what might be the last day of their lives. I think the premise is great because, like, dealing with like someone is like, I'm gonna die, or like doom, like, or just going on Twitter for like 5 minutes and doom scrolling. Like I can relate to this, especially after this pandemic, or I guess it's still going, so this never-ending pandemic. So it seems like it's a very relatable topic, at least.
Yeah, it's a very strange, suffocating kind of film, which I really like. And there's some really beautiful, like, not much dialogue, except that the idea that death is contagious. So like she thinks she's going to die tomorrow, and whoever she meets is then going to think that they're going to die tomorrow, and it creates this panic. But there's a lot more to that, and there's also the environment being a character, because you can tell like her house is kind of alive, and there's strange things going on outside, and colors, and so it kind of fits with the other movies.
So it's kind of like the environment is kind of feeding into like the idea like death is imminent.
Yeah, which is weird. She didn't make it during the pandemic, but it came out at the beginning, and it was like, wow, this like kind of, yeah.
We're going to take one last commercial break. When we're in turn, it's going to be Read, Watch, and Listen on the Cinematic Void podcast.
Concepts of the universe have changed, just as our knowledge of the Earth itself has changed. Compress the entire history of the Earth into 1 year. On this time scale, 8 months of the year would be devoid of life. During the succeeding 2 months, simple bacteria would come into existence. Mammals would not appear until the second week in December. Man would walk into the scene at 11:45 p.m. on December 31st. Recorded history would account for but the final ticks of the clock. Man's aerospace achievements, little more than the flicker of an eyelash.
Welcome back. It's now time for on the Cinematic Void podcast, where we talk about all the things we've been reading, watching, and or listening to. And since Lola is the guest, you get to go first. So Lola, tell us, what have you been reading, watching, and or listening to?
I've been reading, well, first of all, I would like to recommend Jaron Lanier. Lanier, I don't know how you pronounce his last name. 10 Reasons to Quit Social Media. And it sounds simplistic, but I think it's a very, very needed book. So I definitely want to recommend that. And I've also been reading a lot of futurist stuff, but nonfiction. So the big, what is it called? The Big Nine, I think it's called, by Amy Webb. It's about big tech. And it's a very short and informative read. So there's that. That's for read. Listen, I haven't really listened to anything because I'm writing a lot of music. So I try not to listen to anything else, otherwise it goes into my brain. But my friends from Dead Meadow did a levitation session that's really awesome. So I highly recommend that. And what was the other one?
Watch.
Oh, Watch. Nomadland. Oh my God. My favorite movie of the last, whatever. I know it just won some stuff and it's well deserved. I really love that movie.
Frances McDormand can really do no wrong.
She's amazing. And also I just watched that Zappa documentary that I highly recommend.
The one Alex Winter directed?
The very new one. I don't know who directed it.
Yeah, it was Alex Winter of Bill and Ted fame directed it.
It's on like Amazon or something. And I don't really know much about Frank Zappa, and it was really there was some really deep moments, I thought.
I really don't know much about Zappa. I know that his hometown is my hometown. He was born or grew up in Aberdeen, Maryland. So it's me, Frank Zappa, and Cal Ripken Jr.
Very nice.
That's the pedigree of Aberdeen, Maryland. And Billy Ripken. We can't forget Billy Ripken.
Good old fuckface.
Yeah. All right, we're going to have to explain this one. Unless...
Yeah, because I have no idea.
Okay, so this is very, very... You have to be into baseball cards or Baltimore Orioles. So there's a baseball card with Billy Ripken, who is the, I guess, not as famous brother of Cal Ripken. He posed for a photo with his practice bat. On the butt of his practice bat it said fuckface, and it ended up on the card. It was printed on the cards. No one called it. So all these baseball cards with Billy Ripken with his bat that said fuckface went out. It was a huge deal. And it's only funny probably to just Nick and I, and maybe anyone else that's from like Maryland that remembers it. But like there's versions of the card where they caught them and then they put like a black like piece of tape over or white out or whatever. It's ridiculous. So someone was doing bootleg shirts of the card where you could see the fuckface clearly, and it's just like, man, I kind of want one. I'm just not a baseball person, but like I can get behind a Billy Ripken fuckface shirt.
I bet they go for a lot of money now. They're like a collectible.
No, I think there's so many of them because it was a mass-produced card. For a while when you couldn't get them, but then like I don't even know if baseball cards are still worth money. I don't even think like things like that or comics are worth money. I think they're all devalued at this point. If you can't put them on your iPhone digitally, what's the point?
Well, the new thing is crypto baseball cards.
Is that really a thing? Because you were telling me about
huge. Are you kidding? Enormous.
Because you were telling me about like crypto stuff. Because like, I guess this is a good time since we didn't actually do it at any point during the podcast. Talk about our collaborative project, which is we saved the best for last. Life of the Space Tree. So when we started working on this project, after I put together, you sent me the music and I did my edit. You started talking about these like crypto like art things. Do you want to talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, they're actually like they just became mainstream this week, the whole crypto world, because suddenly everyone's doing them. But yeah, it's a new form, because with blockchain you can actually prove ownership of a digital file. So you can sell it as a work of art that only exists online on the blockchain, basically. Yeah.
It's bizarre. It's kind of bizarre.
But it's kind of where like the world is headed anyway.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's online all the time, and so that it's become reversed. The physical is sort of the. I mean, it used to be the online was exceptional and the physical was the main thing, and now it's reversed. The physical is the exceptional and the online is the main thing. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Oh, it definitely does, because like, how does most people watch movies now? Like, I mean, I know Nick just got into Blu-ray collecting, but like I still buy Blu-rays of things I like, but like I also watch a ton of shit on digital and streaming because that's just where a lot of it's available. And, I couldn't tell you last time I bought an actual record. It's all digital.
Yeah. I mean, I do micro releases because they feel more like art to me. So I like that. But I'm really into the crypto art thing. So.
Because when you pitched it to me, I'm like, what is this? And then you kind of explained it, and it's just like, I have no idea. It's like I felt like I was just so out of touch with the internet. But then I saw other things pop up, and then when you just said the baseball card thing, it's like, you're on the pulse. It's always good to be on the pulse and at the riding the wave as opposed to chasing the wave. So
right.
Now that we've derailed everything about from Billy Ripken fuckface cards to crypto art, we've run the gamut. But I guess we should also talk about like Life of a Space Tree. So just a little bit. So for your end, because when we were talking about, because I'd done another similar thing with Wolfman of Mars, another great band, and we did a kind of horror in space. And then I think when I started talking to you about doing one, you're like, maybe we do occult in space. And I was like, it's kind of interesting because like, and it's also when we talked about these films today, like all of them have a occult kind of background to them.
Yeah.
And obviously for the mix, it wasn't like, hard sci-fi. It was like, I used a lot of, I guess, like, hopefully NASA doesn't hear this, a lot of old NASA, like, educational movies cut in with, like, trailers from, like, occult movies like The Wicker Man or Blood on Satan's Claw and V and things like that. And it was kind of cutting them together. Like, I never really thought of sci-fi and occultism together, but then it made sense. And again, you're riding the wave ahead of me on this.
Yeah, well, those are two of my favorite topics, and to me that makes perfect sense. It's always the unknown, so.
I mean, I mean, like I said, like all the movies we talked about, like share like a little bit, like even Phase 4, like the occultism. I know it's not as overt as maybe the other films, but like ants communicating, creating like their own civilization. Like there's some occultism elements to it. It might not be as like a witch doing like a seance or like a cauldron bubbling or anything like that, but it's in the same vein. So, and I'm going to say this as we plug things at the end here. If you haven't checked out the mix, it's available on YouTube. We also both are selling limited edition VHS of it. So I think I still have a few copies left to sell, and I think we're getting those in soon. Probably by the time this podcast comes out, we'll actually have them in hand.
I think so, yeah. We should get them any day now.
Yes. So I'm excited because that was, I've been talking about wanting to do VHS, and I think you pitched that too. Again, riding that wave ahead, and I'm just chasing behind.
And also with the VHS, if anyone's into crypto media, there's NFTs that are linked to that also that they can find on the internet.
That's actually really cool about it, because it's like we're taking what is considered probably a dead media format, which is VHS, and infusing it with the latest media format.
Exactly.
Innovation, god damn it. But if anything, it's just like I want people to check out the mix, because the soundtrack you put together, like I would say like the sci-fi, like it meets dystopian like kind of soundscape, and then it becomes a dystopian dance party. I think that's kind of an accurate way to look at it.
I think people call that dark ambient these days. I've seen that term a lot, dark ambient. Does that sound familiar? Like,
when I think dark ambient, I always think about like all the black metal bands when they got tired of playing guitars and like kind of like decided to use that stuff. But I think that, I mean, honestly, it's kind of in the same vein of a lot of this stuff. Maybe not Burzum, because there's no Lord of the Rings or sketchiness with what you're doing, but I think dark ambient's it's a good term. What do you think, Nick?
It's what we called it in the record store when it was like electronic music that was dark but not techno. It's dark ambient.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Nick, what have you been reading, watching, and or listening to?
All right. For reading, last week I went to go get my real ID at the DMV, and that was awful. I don't recommend it. But I stood in line and read about half of Jeff Dyer's Zona, a book about the film about a journey to a room, which is about Stalker. So yeah, that's what I've been reading. Didn't finish it, but worth mentioning, because I don't think I've mentioned a book in the past few read watch listens. So
I like that you were at a place of existential dread, reading a book about a movie dealing with existential dread. That is the most meta fucking thing I've ever heard.
just miserable, but But
did you get your ID though?
But I got my ID. I actually bought a car yesterday. Wow. I leveled up. It's sick. So
congratulations.
My first time driving in LA, like with my own car. So I've been here for a decade as of this year, and now I'm driving here. So very cool. Little boy's all grown up. So yeah, that's what I've been reading. As far as what I've been watching, I'm gonna start out with the Atom Bomb here. I just got myself a copy from Unearthed Films, a Serbian film. Yeah, so I just watched the Serbian film, and
the feel-good movie of the year.
I liked it, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, it's a fucking disaster. But it was much more of a, I don't know. It's much more of a film than I thought it was going to be. It was less edgelord and artsier than I thought it was going to be, I guess. Although it obviously exists in both realms, very much so. No reason. It's notorious. No reason to go into details here. A Serbian film.
It's a movie I've had a lot of people request that I show.
Really?
That there are 35 millimeter prints of it too.
You have a wild crowd. That's cool to hear. I mean, that's insane.
I can't even think of the context that I could get away with it.
Yeah, what do you pair that with?
You almost have to go palate cleanser. You need to go exact opposite. You need to show Babe Pig in the City 2 after a Serbian film or something like that. It's like, as someone who's intentionally done really nihilistic, like double and triple features where just like it just gets worse as you're going, like I don't think there's a way to like.
There's no coming back from that. That's the.
I mean, it's either you start with Salo and then show that movie, or Babe 2 Pig in the City.
Next up, I watched Clean Shaven. You know, I've been on my Criterion kick lately. So Clean Shaven, American film by Lodge Kerrigan, starring Peter Green, about a schizophrenic that's trying to get his daughter back and scrubbing his skin with Brillo pads.
I've seen that. I haven't watched it. Is it on Blu-ray now?
It's just on the Criterion channel.
Okay, because I have the DVD when it came out, and that's probably the last time I watched it. But I remember really liking it.
Yeah, it's a cool one.
I haven't seen that.
Just watched Europa by Agnieszka Holland, Polish director. She actually wrote or was at least one of the writers for Kieslowski's Blue.
Yes.
Which is very cool. But Europa is about this Jewish kid that's fleeing the Nazis and ends up I guess he's kind of like, he kind of weasels his way in where he's like adopted by some Germans or something and kind of passes himself off as one of them, as like an Aryan.
Yeah, he passes for Aryan. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty interesting film. And then I just watched the Speed Cubers doc on Netflix, which is great, which is a bunch of kids like solving a Rubik's Cube in like 3 seconds. And I bought one and I figured out how to solve it, and I can solve it in 9 fucking minutes. So I'm going to get my time down to, I'm going to work on my time. I'm never get it down to 3 seconds, but I can do it, man. I'm stoked.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then for listening, I've been listening over and over to the Rome Streets DJ Muggs record that just came out. It's super sick. Just, hip hop. DJ Muggs is a legend. Yeah, it's great. I don't know if you've heard that one yet, Jim, but it's,
I have not.
It'll be your shit. It's sick. It's called Death and the Magician. It's great. Also been listening to that Conway Big Ghost. They finally put that on all the streaming platforms. It's called If It Bleeds, It Can Be Killed. And I think that's really good as well. Maybe even better than some of the other Conway stuff he did last year. And then I've just been listening to a bunch of like old soul stuff. Delphonics, Marie Queenie Lyons, Lee Moses, Gloria Barnes. So yeah, that's about it for me. How about you, man?
I'm just blown away. 1, you bought a car, and 2, you bought a fucking Rubik's Cube.
And you can solve it.
And I fucking solved it.
In like 9 minutes?
9 minutes. 9 minutes. It took me a week. And then the day that I solved it, I solved it once, and then I was like, fuck yeah, scrambled it up, and then I timed myself. Yeah.
All right.
I don't even know if I should even do my list, because this is a hard act to follow.
I've had a sick week. I don't know what to tell you.
You're on a roll.
All right, I'll just try. So for read, I'm still reading Focus on Murder by George Harmon Cox, kind of pulp novel. I'm only reading like a couple pages a day because I still have a hard time reading. I need to read that Get Off Social Media book, because I think that will help me get back to actually being able to read literature.
You should. No, it's good. It's a short book and it's very convincing.
I don't disagree with it without even reading it. But I should read it. So that's been the only thing I've been reading. Watch, because it was Valentine's Day. Cinematic Void did her 5-year anniversary Cinematis movie where I showed X-Ray, which was the first movie I showed at Cinematic Void, which is the other 80s Valentine's Day slasher. This one produced by Canon Films, directed by Boaz Davison, who obviously did Last American Virgin, Lemon Popsicle, and although it's supposed to be a slasher movie, it plays like a comedy. I also watched the quintessential 80s Valentine's Day slasher, My Bloody Valentine, which I think is one of the best slasher movies ever made. And shout out to Canada, because it's one of probably the best Canadian films made that wasn't directed by a Cronenberg. I also watched, I guess, late 2000s, another holiday-themed slasher, Valentine, which I hadn't seen. I had a copy of it on Blu-ray that I got for, I think it was a Beyond Fest giveaway, and it's been sitting on my shelf, and it's like, oh, fuck it, might as well watch it. And surprisingly not bad, especially for like a later 2000s slasher. I also did a rewatch of Perfume of the Lady in Black, starring Mimsy Farmer, one of the great 70s giallos. Has a little cannibalism angle, has a really great soundtrack. I watched the AGFA Horror Trailer Show, which is just AGFA, which is American Genre Film Archive, put together like a compilation of some trailers that they had in their archive, did a scan, put together a show. It's kind of cool. It's a decent trailer comp. I do like trailer comps as things to put on the background. I also watched from Fun City Editions I Start Counting, starring Jenny Agutter, who was in Walkabout and American Werewolf in London. I wrote down the plot of this one because, like, I wasn't going to get this one, then I read it, and it's like, this sounds really creepy and interesting. Basically, it's a coming-age story of a 14-year-old girl who then discovers that her older foster brother may be basically a sex crime killer. And it's made in, like, I think it was 1969 British movie, and it's, like, really, really fucking good. I also watched Panic Beats, which is starring and I think directed by Paul Naschy, the great Spanish Wolfman. This movie, he's not a werewolf. He wears a knight armor and kills people. And for listen, I've been listening to a few of the singles that have been coming out from Denzel Curry and Kenny Beats. I guess there's some remixes from Unlocked. There's two of the songs so far. One of them I think was remixed by Alchemist, and I think that was Cosmic, so it's got guests and different people interpretation. I think there's an Unlocked 2 coming out soon. I also listened to Freddie Gibbs doing a cover of Gil Scott-Heron's Winter in America, where it doesn't rap, just sings. It's really good. Kind of reminds me of some of the R&B stuff he did with Madlib on Pinata and Bandana. It's really interesting, especially coming from him. It's really good. And I
saw that he did that on ESPN. Is that the only available version, or was there an actual studio version?
There's a studio version. I think ESPN put out a comp for Black History Month of, like, there's other artists on it. I only got the Gibbs song, but, like, it's really good. It's definitely worth checking out if you haven't yet. I also got that Conway Big Ghost Limited, or I should say I've been listening to If It Bleeds, It Can Be Killed. Really good Conway. The EPs he does with Big Ghost Limited have been really, really good. Some of his best work, and this one's no exception. I think that's about it. Lola, I want to thank you for joining us today and making such great suggestions for this podcast.
You're welcome. Oh, one thing I forgot, that you guys like British humor. One thing I've been watching that's like the funniest thing I've seen in a decade. Like, it's called Statlet's Flats.
No, I haven't seen it, but I do like British comedy.
It's on HBO, and it's by the girl from What We Do in the Shadows, the vampire.
Yes.
Vampire thing. It's her and her brother.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely going on the list. But yeah, but thank you for joining us. Thank you for making some great suggestions, and love to have you back at some point, maybe for time travel or another topic you might feel partial to, cinematic-wise.
Well, thanks for having me. It was fun.
So that wraps up this episode of the Cinematic Void Podcast. Coming up, next Cinemadness movie is going to be March 26th, presented by our friends at Vinegar Syndrome. It's you get to see some Hollywood Boulevard in this movie. That's going to be your clue. So stick around for that. We got some more episodes coming up on the Cinematic Void Podcast. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. Maybe baseball. Nick made a suggestion earlier today about baseball.
I don't even know if I don't really like baseball. I just want to talk about blood games.
Maybe we'll just do a podcast on blood games. Until next time, see you in the void.
Survival of the fittest has acquired new meaning in our time. Strength has become the index to peace. Space is a place for security. Space begins just 50 miles away. How far it extends, no one can tell. We do not aspire to conquer space. We seek rather to understand it, to become proficient in space to the degree that we have adapted to the seas and to the air.